Let's go in the talking room.
You are really busy right now. You've got a couple of things in the hopper, right?
Yeah, really busy always feels like a lament. So in this case, it's not. I think it's awesome. The big shift has been entering back into the episodic television world with The Leftovers. So we've been writing since the beginning of October. And that has just been a wild shift away from what the 3 previous years were in the, Lost finished in 2010. And so just the movie life, while I would try to convince people that I was busy, what it really amounted to was, 3 to 4 hours a day of actual work, and then the rest of the time goofing around on the internet and going and seeing movies and reading books and spending time with my family, who I had neglected in the 6 years that Lost was on, building goodwill towards when that time would come again, and that time is now. And then there were brief periods over the course of those 3 years where I would very intensively focus on a writing project for a month. But for the most part, it was like a pretty any screenwriter who tells you that their life is hard, the work is hard, but the hours are awesome. And now I'm back into a regimented 70-hour week. Just basically focused on The Leftovers. And then in addition to that, Tomorrowland, which Brad Bird is directing.
You were co-writer of Tomorrowland and one of the producers.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so those are two very different hats.
They are.
And you've bounced back and forth between them a whole bunch. Is there one that you prefer? Do you like the oscillation?
I think the great thing about Tomorrowland is Brad Bird is really the showrunner. Once we went into production, it's just Brad's vision. And so there's a huge, as huge of a control freak as I am, when you work with somebody like Brad or J.J. Abrams, you can just kind of step back and say hey, I'm here if there's anything you need me to do. I'm going to be watching the dailies and sending you emails about how incredibly talented you are. But at that point, when am I going to tell Brad Bird about how to do his job?
But does that happen? Does he call up and say, I've run into a block here with something that doesn't make sense, and can we fix it?
Yeah, infrequently. I think more likely there'll be an issue, we get behind, or there's stunt blocking that we wrote in the script that when you actually get there on the day isn't going to make sense. So he'll call and say, I wanted to cut this, or I had this idea to do that, or but mostly, he functions more or less autonomously, and if he wants to change stuff on the day, he certainly doesn't need to call me. When he does, it's a courtesy.
We live in a culture where people walk out of a movie and immediately start discussing its primary themes and the places that the script went wrong, but you frequently get to sit in the room and discuss.
I get to write the scripts
those
that go
big
wrong.
Themes.
Yes.
And specifically, there are times when you're collaborating, but also when you're coming in to fix something, coming in to adjust something. And I'm kind of fascinated by stepping into World War Z. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about that. They'd already shot a whole movie.
Yes.
And then they called you, and you've got to come into a room where everyone's been eating, sleeping, and breathing this thing for years.
Right.
And they say, please tell us how to tear this apart and put it back together?
My agent called me and essentially said, do you want to meet with Brad Pitt? And that was the opening salvo. And I was like...
The answer to that question is always yes.
It's always going to be yes, absolutely. Even if it's just to be beat up by him.
Yeah, exactly.
I will do that. And so I said, yes, I would love to meet with him. Do you know what it's about? And my agent said, I think it's about World War Z, but I'm unclear on that. And
they're, of course, trying to keep wraps on any kind
I went to Brad's house and met with him in his office with his producing partners. And essentially what they said was, we finished this movie, we've been editing it for a couple months now, and the ending isn't working. And we would love for you to take a look at it and help us out.
And they have a clear idea about why they think the ending doesn't work.
Yes, but they didn't share that with me at the time. And when I've done this job before on other movies, it's you need this scene, or you need to shoot a couple scenes. So it's like a day or two of principal photography. So I thought that's what was going to be one of those. Because the reason that I get that call is because I've done this a couple of times, and Prometheus was not a case of that. That was, I came in at the scripting phase.
Do you read the script first, or do you watch their cut first?
They didn't want me to. They didn't want me to read any of the materials. I told them that I had read the book and what I liked about the book. And but other than that, they were just, and it was odd because normally you have this meeting after you've seen the movie, and so you say like, well, here's what I do. It's an interview. Like they're not saying, Damon, help us. We need you. They're saying, they want to find out if you... They're interviewing a number of different writers and soliciting their takes. And the take that they like the most, they'll hire that person. That's usually how it works. This was a little bit different, and I don't know if they talked to anybody else prior to me, but they were like, we don't want you to read anything. We want you to watch the movie, and then tell us what you think. And so I went and I saw the movie, and I only saw 72 minutes of the movie, so it's roughly an hour and 10 minutes, and the movie ended very abruptly. And so they were like, so what'd you think? And I said, where's the rest of the movie? Like, I kind of, they're like, well, we don't want you to see all that other stuff. If the movie just ended here, what would you do from here? And I said, well, I could answer that question, but I still feel like I need to see what you did so that I don't pitch that, because I have certain instincts, but I also feel like I can learn a lot from what you did and didn't like. Yeah. And that's where I feel like if I had been in the Matthew Carnahan position, who's basically the guy who did all the writing to get the movie made and all the writing through it, I would have written exactly what Matthew Carnahan wrote, because when you're writing a movie, you're in service of the producers and the director's vision. In this case, it was Brad and Dee Dee and Jeremy and Mark Forster. So you're basically, you have a voice in that process, but you're doing what makes sense to them. They're your bosses. So so they did show me the original, and I was like, this isn't just by virtue of the fact that they only showed me 72 minutes, I knew immediately this was not the job that I had done before, where you say, move this scene, move that scene, and you need to reshoot 2 new scenes.
Right. This is a big fix.
So they showed me what they had shot, and thus began, what ended up being a 1-month process for me.
I am also interested in how it was sitting down and working out Prometheus with Ridley Scott.
Yes.
I mean, sitting across the room from this guy, that has to be... I just found myself wondering how you would say, actually, I don't like that idea.
Oh, no, you don't. Right. What are you, crazy? First off, he's wearing all that armor.
Right.
Which is, he takes the Sir thing very seriously. It's intimidating.
But he's looking to you for ideas and for to take things and run with them. And...
Sure. I don't get to be the fanboy, version of myself sitting in the movie theater going like this. I can't be that guy in that room, or I will be fired and replaced. And I know that because I've been fired and replaced. So I have a job which is I can either take the high moral ground, or I can be a professional and try to execute the vision that's put in front of me. And all that being said, I found, and I'm not just saying this because this is what you're supposed to say, I found Ridley to be enormously, highly collaborative and funny and engaging and tough, because, great directors are where it's like, he was very honest. If I pitched something that he didn't like, he would tell me so, and then I had to go back to the drawing board.
I mean, I found myself wondering if, you've been a fan of his for so long.
Yes. And
he sits down and he has an insight, and you're like, oh, okay, now I get why you're Ridley Scott.
Basically, we'd been working together for about a week, and then we were, eating lunch, and he started talking about Blade Runner. And I was like, okay, well,
this is
you
happening.
opened the door. Let's talk about Blade Runner. And I just said to him, Ridley, before I even dive in on this, I have to tell you what my experience was watching Blade Runner, and what a master. And as soon as I said the word masterpiece, he just sort of waved me off and was like, just shut the up. I don't, now he got really uncomfortable and embarrassed and sweet, and I could tell he didn't want me to.
That's not the level
sit there and
talk about
praise him, which I was like, I wanted to do that for 20 minutes. It's he just wants me to treat him, obviously like my boss, but he doesn't want me to treat him like Ridley Scott. And I don't know if I can do my job well if I venerate him too much.
Damon, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thank you for sitting down with me and coming to my office.
Oh, C.K. Dexter Haven!
Hey guys, thanks for watching The Talking Room with Adam Savage and Damon Lindeloff. In order to watch the entire hour-long interview, head on over and see our friends at tested.com. And remember to click like and subscribe, and come back next time for more movie news on Cinefix Now.